Joe Biden says he's prepared to go on the offensive during next week's second Democratic debate. The former vice president says he won't be so polite toward his fellow Democrats after Senator Kamala Harris criticized him for his opposition to federally mandated busing. Biden is also caught in another disagreement over criminal justice policy, this time with Senator Cory Booker. Ed O'Keefe has more.
Wall Street did not build this country. Middle-class people and access to the middle class built it.
Former Vice President Joe Biden and other Democrats appeared this week at conferences hosted by civil rights organizations, touting their plans to revamp the criminal justice system. But Biden also took time to defend his record on civil rights, in part by referencing President Obama.
They did a significant background check on me for months with 10 people. I doubt whether he would have picked me if this accusations about my being wrong on civil rights was correct.
Biden's lead over the Democratic field has slipped since the first debates.
Do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America?
This week, Biden was asked about a CBS News poll that identified California Senator Kamala Harris as the most strong candidate among Democratic voters.
I was probably overly polite.
In a radio interview Thursday, he also raised questions about Harris's motives at the first debate.
I thought we were friends, and I hope we still will be. You know, she asked me to go to her convention and be the guy from outside of California to nominate her at her convention for the Senate seat. I did.
Biden, Harris, and New Jersey Senator Cory Booker will be front and center at a debate next Wednesday. Booker is raising doubts about Biden's new plan to revamp federal sentencing laws and drug policy, since the former VP backed tough-on-crime bills in the 1990s.
For a guy who helped to be an architect of mass incarceration, this is an inadequate solution.
But Biden hit back, raising questions about Booker's past record as mayor of Newark, New Jersey.
His police department was stopping and frisking people, mostly African-American men. If he wants to go back and talk about records, I'm happy to do that, but I'd rather talk about the future.
For more on this, let's bring in Alex Thompson in Arlington, Virginia. He covers the 2020 race for Politico. Alex, even after the attacks against him in the last debate, polls show Biden is still the frontrunner. He's also popular among black voters in places like South Carolina, where he has a 22-point lead. Why does he feel it's necessary to go on the attack?
Well, because next week's debate is we're going to see the most diverse stage in the history of presidential politics. And almost every person of color that's going to be on that stage has already signaled that they are going to attack Biden on race. Now, he took a pretty big hit in that first debate with Kamala Harris, but now you're seeing Cory Booker already indicating that he's going to take Biden on race. You're seeing Julian Castro doing the same thing. And you're seeing Bill de Blasio do it with he'll say that he's the only one on stage who has a black son and has also been critical of Joe Biden on race. So the Biden campaign isn't waiting for the debate to start. They are preempting the criticism that's going to come his way and trying to regain the offensive rather than just be on the defensive the entire time.
There's been a lot of talk about Biden's views on busing and criminal justice, but in recent days, he has attacked Harris for her support of Medicare for all. Let's take a listen.
Bernie's been honest. It's going to cost, it's going to raise tax in the middle class. Well, you got to find $30 to $40 trillion somewhere. And how are you going to do it? Well, I find the people who say they're for Medicare for all, but they're not going to tax the middle class because we don't need to do that. Come on. What is this? Is this a fantasy world here?
Do you expect him to try and shift the focus to health care when he takes on Harris?
Oh, absolutely. And his campaign just this morning cut a new web ad in which they take on Medicare for all. They claim it's going to take away health care from union members who have negotiated for private health insurance even after retirement. They are using that message, not just to go after Harris, but I think also to distinguish himself from Warren and Bernie Sanders as well. But I would not be surprised if Biden not only takes on Harris on her own record as Attorney General in California, but also takes her on Medicare for all.
Alex, you cover Senator Elizabeth Warren's presidential run for Politico. She didn't share the stage with any of her fellow polling leaders in the first debate, but next week she'll be alongside her progressive counterpart, Senator Bernie Sanders. How does Warren plan to approach Sanders in this second debate?
It's funny. We talked to Warren in the Senate the other day, and she indicated that it's going to be friendly, that she's like, we've been friends for a long, long time, and I expect that to go over into the debate. You know, Sanders, when he was asked about sharing the stage with Warren last week, said that he expects simply intelligence. So both are sort of indicating that even though this is a debate and they are both vying to become sort of the standard bearers of the left wing of the party, that they are going to continue to sort of have this awkward detente where they refuse to go negative against each other. I expect even when they are attacked from some of the more moderate members of the stage, they might even express sort of solidarity with each other against the so-called Democratic establishment.
Friendly between Warren and Sanders. I'll be curious to see. You pointed out an interesting quote by Senator Warren in a Bloomberg profile this week. She said, quote, "You could wake somebody up in the middle of the night and ask them what a Republican stands for, and you'd get pretty consistent answers. Ask what Democrats stand for, and it's always a more difficult explanation that makes it harder to pull people into the fight because they're less sure it's their fight." How does this view of the Democratic Party influence her strategy in this race?
I think it pervades her entire approach from the very beginning, which is that she is defying a lot of party orthodoxy, whether or not it's with some of her policies on the wealth tax or breaking up the big tech companies who have long been allies of the Democratic Party, especially in the Obama administration. She is basically making an implicit argument that the Democratic Party over the last 30 or 40 years has really lost its way, and she is trying to chart a path forward. I think she would even admit the closest person to making a similar argument is Bernie Sanders, which is why it's also interesting that they are going to be center stage side by side, both aware that probably only one of them can win, but both making a very similar argument.
Alex, as you well know, Warren says she's hit 1 million donations, joining Sanders as the only two candidates to hit the mark. She's sworn off big dollar donations, but does she see the number of donations she gets as crucial to her campaign as opposed to the actual dollar amount?
I think so, because Warren talks quite frequently about not just winning, but creating a movement. And a lot of politicians talk about creating movements, so take it with a grain of salt, but Warren really believes that in order to create the sort of change that she is talking about, in order to usher in the number of Democrats that would be necessary to pass some of this legislation in the Senate, in the House, that it's more than just winning the White House. You have to create a huge grassroots movement. So her campaign manager sent an email out to all the supporters today, really playing up this $1 million donations mark. Now, $1 million donations does not mean there's 1 million donors, to be clear, but it still is a huge benchmark, and it sets her and Bernie Sanders both apart from the rest of the field, which I think sort of indicates that the party might be, the left wing of the party still might be surging in this era.
All eyes will be on this second debate. Alex Thompson, thank you.
Thanks.